I usually am on a road trip with my partner Ingrid, and she doesn't let me eat at a gas station.
You're missing out.
Maybe a banana. It's not too green. But if I could, I mean, and if I really wanted to, I probably would get just something that I don't.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I thought I'd talk about some of the basics of reporting and writing. Please ask me questions even before I start talking. If there are some issues you want to talk about, or if you've been thinking about this and have some ideas, or chime in with questions or okay.
That chair for that.
For those people online, that's Maddie's chair. Making a lot of noise. And so she's abandoning.
Yeah.
You guys have been at this for 2 months now, right? Oh, not quite, not even 2 months. So just let me ask a general question. How are things going? Don't make Maddie answer that. She's the editor.
Very well from sports. We've got more stories picked up than I've been.
And when you say picked up, what do you mean? Read online?
Actually, like written.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not writing all the sports stories.
oh, I'm picking up assignments.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. And I thought I saw, is it Francesca's writing some sports?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw that in sports, I haven't done a deep dive. I thought we talked about at some point, talk about a critique. I thought it was a little too early to do that because you guys are still finding your voice, getting situated. We could do something like that in November, or I can save it for January when you guys are all veterans and can hack it when I or someone else takes a red pen to the paper.
Yeah.
But you guys let me know about that. But I did notice in sports, I don't know if you remember this, one thing we talked about last year a little bit was writing sports stories in a TikTok manner, where like a baseball game starts in the first inning and you just march through the game, or a volleyball match or whatever. But you guys, I've noticed more and more you guys are mixing it up and doing more of a traditional, just kind of you're not doing a strict chronological order.
I think it suits more sports than others. Like, yeah.
Okay, great. You're saying there's some sports that maybe are better chronologically told?
I think volleyball is still better step by step, but yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. As long as you tell me who won the overall, then you can get certainly. So I've done a variation on this presentation before. A long time ago in 2010, there was a young writers conference at UNM, and I gave a presentation, and I've kind of tweaked it since then. Just to give you my background real quick, some of you know this, but I used to be a journalist in mostly a copy editor in Chicago at the Chicago Sun-Times in the 90s, and other newspapers there. And then I moved out here 21 years ago to work at the Albuquerque Tribune, an afternoon paper, and that lasted until 2008. I finished up, I was a copy editor most of my career, not at the very beginning, and not for the last year and a half. Last year and a half, I was a feature writer, and I wrote about music, I wrote about film, I wrote about culture. I did an epic profile of Don Schrader. He's a friend of mine to this day, and I did a few other profiles. I did a series. I just went through kind of some of my archives last week for another reason, and I did one feature story. I did was I went a week without a car, and I kept my car in the driveway, and I got to work by bus, by train, by bike. I telecommuted, and this was 15 years ago or 18 years ago. It was a long time ago. So anyway, that was one of my favorite stories I did. But I also really enjoyed feature stories. I think the most perfect story I ever wrote, and maybe I'll share it with you guys someday, is a story about, have you ever seen, they used to do this at the fair, and I don't know if they do it at the state fair anymore. They did for a long time. I don't know if they brought it back, but they have working sheepdogs, the herding sheep. Has anybody ever seen a dog herd sheep?
Yeah.
A couple of people have. To me, I first saw it right before I left the Chicago area. I went to the Iowa State Fair with a friend. And I saw that for the first time and I was mesmerized. I just thought that was the most amazing thing. I was just up in Taos this weekend with a friend who has some sheep, but he doesn't have a herding dog. And so I did a profile of one or two people who train dogs to herd sheep and I watched the dogs. And so that was those are some of my favorite things to do. So I thought the way I structured this was, and again, please just jump in, ask questions, make observations, tell me to move on, whatever you want me to do. And speak loudly if you're online on Zoom so we can hear you. But I came up with 5 ways to get a story, 5 ways to write a story. And so I'll start with the 5 ways to get a story. The first thing I thought of was, and I wish I knew this when I was your age, and I wish somebody had told me this, and I wish I had put it into practice, but be bold. It's really tough. We talked about this a little bit with Jeff Proctor at our last workshop about some of us are shy and approaching people for a story when we're on assignment, whatever it is. And I would just reemphasize that. Not only be bold where you put yourself out there and you assert yourself, but also get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I assume on the features desk you come up with ideas and you can do different stories. And I'm sure you have interests, and I'm sure, like, I wanted to do a story about dogs that herd sheep, and so I did that, and that was fun. But you can also get out of your comfort zone a little bit. So when I say be bold, it's go beyond just your interests, go beyond your circle of friends or your acquaintances to find stories. Be open to ideas that might challenge you in a story, that might expand your world a little bit. You can still take what you know and what you've learned, but the first thing, if I'm going to be any type of reporter and I'm going to go out and get stories, the first thing I'm going to try to convince myself is to be bold and to assert myself and expand my horizons. So my 5 ways to get the story will be bold, be diligent, be curious, be patient, and be good. So we covered be bold, and then be diligent. Even before you go out to do your story, you'll want to do your homework. You'll want to study up on what you're covering. You want to do research. Luckily, in this modern age, that's really easy to do. There's a lot of information out there and a lot of ways to find that information. But the worst thing you want to do is to be unprepared. I don't know if it's a regular beat, but Karina's with us online.
Yes, she's
Yeah. Covering, the Senate and ASUNM and, student government in general. That's not an easy assignment, and that's something you have to work at and kind of study up on. And so that's one thing I noticed is there's a diligence there. One thing I was really impressed by in Karina's story this week was oh yeah, at the bottom of the first leg in the paper edition. I initially read it online. But Karina explains what a slate is. Some people might think, oh, everybody knows what a slate is. I've seen that a million times, but maybe I'm not quite sure what it is. And Karina spent a whole paragraph explaining just how slates work and what they how they fit into the idea of which was the main theme of the story, which was with one of the ideas was if you have these mega groups all running together, they'll swamp out smaller groups or individuals from getting seats and representation in student government. So I liked the idea that, and I don't know, Karina, do you want to add anything about how you added that? Did you ask somebody about that? Did you know that? Or did you look it up?
So first of all, I want to give a shout out to Maddie. They really helped me with like the formatting of figuring out how to it kind of just explain it it really explained the term. Like I had talked to several senators and I had gotten their like different definitions and the variations of definitions, and just reading through the minutes, I just came up kind of with the best one that I could to compile all of it. But Maddie really, really did me a huge solid by helping me really like consolidate that and make it into just like, okay, here's a slate, here's a super slate, and then so on and so forth. But yeah.
Great, teamwork, I like it. Good job. So when I say do your homework and be diligent, you want to do that before you go out and cover your story. You want to do it while you're covering your story, and you want to follow up and do it afterward. So diligence is the second way to get a story. Be curious, and this is another thing that I think usually naturally comes to somebody who wants to be a reporter or a writer. You're just naturally curious, hopefully. But some people have to kind of train themselves to do that a bit. I would remember that this is a very human operation that you guys do. It's easy to do things by text, or it's easy to do things remotely. But it's also much better to be in person when you're doing these things. I wish back when I was a young reporter that I had the technology that you have. I wish I could text sources and have that at my fingertips and be so agile in being a reporter. But also I think you have not only that, but you also have the human element and the in-person element. So try not to rely too much on technology or gimmicks when you're reporting. Talk to people, try to talk face to face. Here are some of my tips about when you're there, and as a curious, observant reporter, use all of your senses. It's not just what people say, it's the look they give when they say it. You can listen for things when you're at an event. So just use not only what people say, but how they look, what they, their mannerism. When if I'm going to cover the state fair, I'm gonna not only report what I see, but what I smell, all that kind of thing. So just use your senses. Always keep a sharp eye for detail, and always be thinking, what could be the one thing about this event or this story I'm working on, whether it's whether you're just talking to sources to put together a government story like Karina was, or if you're at an event. One thing you want to do is you want to start to get an idea of what is it that's representative of the event or the story I'm covering. Start in the back of your mind, you should be thinking, you don't want to go in with a kind of a predetermined notion, although you want to go in with some ideas of what you're after. But you want to keep that open mind, and you want, as you're covering an event or a story, you want something to form in your mind, and you want there to be kind of a theme or something representative that becomes the story. And so look for that, because that'll kind of give you the big picture. It'll give you a hook, it'll give you a theme, it'll give you something that you're looking for. And I think about that in sports as well, when you're watching a game. And just because the baseball playoffs are on, I'll use baseball. But there's kind of storylines that happen during a game like that. Whether it's the pitcher and the type of day they're having. But it's or it's like one person who emerges and that becomes your focus. So just look for that kind of the big picture in that representative. Also listen for quotes when people talk. Do most of you record the events that you go to?
Record everything.
Record everything. That's just the rule now. I didn't do a lot of that, again, back in the day. We did have recording devices, but it wasn't our phone back then. But keep an ear out for quotes. But even though you're recording everything, you're also taking notes, right? And you're flagging those quotes so that you don't have, so you can You can go back, you know where to find it on the recording, right? I'm getting nods. But those quality quotes, because you really want to hear the story. And the other story I was going to mention, and I'll do it in more detail later, was the AI story. And that I don't think Elizabeth is with us today. Okay. But Elizabeth had some really good quotes in that AI story, but also again, and these are the two stories I'm using. I'm not singling people out for good or bad. They're just handy to use this week because they're fresh. But Karina even starts out with a quote. I like hearing that voice at the beginning. It's a little tricky to start out a story with a quote. But if it works and it kicks you off in the right way, then that's good. So always be listening for not just people explaining something, but again, that little hook, that little tweak, that little unique turn of phrase or something like that, a quote that's going to jump off the page or off the screen. Here's another thing. Again, this is all under the kind of idea of be observant and be curious when you're there. Don't feel like you have to get the entire story. You want to get the full story. You want to get a well-rounded story, but you might not be able to cover every single aspect of it. You can always do a follow-up story. You might, it might be at an event where several things are going on. You're going to have to make that editorial judgment decision where you're going to decide who to talk to, when, and how, and that sort of thing. So don't feel the pressure that don't feel overwhelmed that you have to cover every single aspect of an event for a story. And trust your own point of view. You go into this with your own knowledge, with your own ideas, with your own biases or predilections. So don't be afraid to use that to your advantage. Obviously, we're all here. We're supposed to be objective. We're not supposed to be biased, but there is that idea of the myth of objectivity where we all think that we're always all objective all the time. And that's simply not true. I'm not saying to slant your stories. I'm not talking about politics. I'm not talking about something or some cause that you believe in. I'm talking about you're a unique person and you have your own approach to things. And that's part of the reason why your voice is in the Daily Lobo, because you bring something to this. Don't be afraid to bring that to the story. Don't make the story about you unless you're assigned to do it that way and you're doing some first person account. But don't be afraid of your ideas and your own personal views. You can use that to your advantage, and you can use that when cultivating sources, but also when assessing what's important in writing a story and what's not. So that was be curious, be patient. Wait for the story to unfold. Don't be in a hurry. Too often you get either a complete story or kind of a skewed version of what's happening if you rush through it. I understand you have a deadline, but you're lucky in that in the public publishing, you're only publishing once a week. I know you're online regularly, but that also gives you the flexibility. When most of my career, I was in a rigid system where the morning paper would come out early in the morning. So that meant we put it together at night, we recorded it during the day, edited it at night. And basically what you do for the Monday paper, we would do that every day. And that meant that when 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night hit, and that was our deadline because we wanted the presses to run at a certain time, we were done. But you don't have to rush these days. You have the opportunity to be patient and let a story unfold. And so, you know, even the most mundane events has something interesting there. It might not happen right away, it might not be apparent right away. But if you sit back and let things unfold, you might find that you might find the thing that's most compelling about what you're covering. Even the most ordinary seeming person might have like a really compelling story to tell, but it might take time. You might have to break the ice, you might have to talk to that person over several different interviews. Because you might just need to kind of loosen that person up a little bit, or dig a little bit, they might be reluctant to talk to you. But if you can develop that trust, and if you're patient, you can get the story. And then finally, in getting the story, I say be good. And that is follow the rules. Always be honest and open. Identify yourself when as a reporter. Don't hide the fact of what you're doing when you're reporting a story, getting the story, or and whether it's an event or a story you're covering. I said bring your point of view, but don't let it get in the way and don't let it dominate. You are going to run into people who have different views than you have, and that's the whole point. You're on a college campus, there are protests, there are discussions, there are lectures. You're not there to inject your biases into the story. You can let them inform how you approach the story, but don't let them overtake you. And remember, 99% of the time, the story is not about you. Also, just be a good person. Be open-minded, be fair, be respectful. That goes a long way. I used to sit across from a reporter. His name is Ollie Reed. He's in his 70s now. He still writes. You might see the byline if you read the journal. He's been around a long time. He was kind of a mentor for me as a feature writer at the Albuquerque Tribune. But one of the things he did, our desks were across from each other, and I heard him do phone interviews a lot. And the one thing he did that I learned that was one of the most helpful things was he would do like a 20-minute interview with somebody. He'd be prepared, he'd ask some questions, he'd follow the conversation where it went so that where it might lead to interesting information. And he was writing mostly feature stories. So it was, he's looking for the personality, looking for the quote. And the last thing he did before he ended the interview was he would say, is there anything I haven't brought up that you'd like to bring up? Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to bring up? And I had never thought of doing that before. I always thought that I'm the professional, I'm asking the questions here, and I'm kind of, I know what I want, I know where this is going. But Ollie, almost every time, would do that open-ended question and say, is there anything else you want to discuss with me? And there were times when that person then kind of opened up or said something unexpected, and he followed up on that, and that sometimes would become the lead of the story. It was something that he hadn't even thought of, hadn't thought to ask. And so that's a nice little trick if you just want to make sure you've kind of covered your bases and opened up the conversation to all of its possibilities. So to me, those are kind of the 5 ways to get the story. And then I was going to talk a little bit about writing the story. Does anybody want to jump in and ask a question, make an observation? I'll be happy to lecture at you if you want. Has anybody had any issues with assignments or getting a story or how to approach the story in the first month and a half that you guys have been at this? Anything you want to share so far? I will go on to writing the story. Does anybody here do an outline before they write a story? Nobody, there we go. Okay. Now you're a copy editor, you also do some writing?
I've been like 3 stories in the past.
And it's Kelsa?
Yes.
And Maddie, you outline? Tell us a little bit about your approach, and is that the first thing you do, or once you've got all your information?
It's definitely once I've got all my
You
information.
might speak up.
Yes, sorry, it's definitely like once I've got all information, I'm like really overwhelmed, like, whoa, this is a lot. And then I like just kind of start to break it down by theme. And then I organize the themes into like how I want the flow of the story to go. And then I start filling.
Is there a recent story you
How about mine?
did that with, that you can think of?
I haven't wrote the past few weeks, which is good for
Okay.
me.
You're not supposed to be writing.
Yeah. Over the summer, I did do like an all hands thing where I kind of went piece by piece with outline process. But I know, so like for that story, that was like the story I read about 4th of July, a project event on 4th of July.
4th of July protest.
Yeah,
Okay.
over the summer. And so then I like kind of split it up thematically.
And you actually put it in outline form.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, I can share,
Did that outline, was that a separate document and you
yes.
toggle back and forth?
Yes, I'll have like my outline and then I'll have like my document of like books and information. And then those two will get combined up to a third document.
Okay, that's interesting, okay. So the first thing I would say when you're approaching the story, and it's maybe obvious, but get organized. Collect your notes and information, so when you, a lot of this is done electronically where you record. Somebody walk me through, because I honestly haven't done it that way. Walk me through, you've gone to an event, let's say it's that 4th of July event, although somebody else can talk about a different event. You've recorded a bunch of people. Tell me how you organize that, what do? Do you transcribe things, do you have flagged in your notes?
Got a hand on food.
Sorry, I
Okay,
so the way that I go about it is I have like my phone next to me and I'll be recording, but I'm actively like taking notes. And I'm like a huge fan of like just different bulleting points. So like my first bullet point will be like a huge section that I'm like, oh, okay, cool, awesome, this is important. And then I'll put like a timestamp of it. Like if I start the recording at 6, I'll put, if it's 30 minutes in that the next thing happens, I'll put 30 minutes.
okay.
And then I'm just actively typing, and then I'll put important names, or like I'll highlight things if I need to come back to them. And then after I'm done at the event and I've looked at, and I've written everything, I'll look at it and I'll see what things really stick out to me. And then I'll kind of sit with it for a little bit if I have time. And then the next day I'll go back and if I like need to find a specific quote that I was in love with, or there was a certain section that I was in love with, I'll go back and I'll re-listen to that just so I make sure that like everything sounds right and I just have like the right like handle on everything and like the right view on it. But yeah, and then after that I'll create an outline out of, basically my notes are my outline, and then I'll just go, okay, cool. And again, Maddie is amazing. I run a lot of things by them before I start. So
And do you, a follow-up question, do you, can you tell us about a certain event or a story you covered that applied to that might be helpful?
yeah, totally. So the news event was perfect for that, just because like so they have like the agenda listed online too, so you can like pull up. What I did is I pulled up the agenda next to my notes, and I was just following and saying, okay, cool, this is business, this is the different stuff that I need. And it was like there's a lot of different names, there's like 20 different senators in the room, there's the president and vice president, there's people coming in for public comment, people coming to be guest speakers. It's like it gets kind of overwhelming because it's like a 3-hour event, and so just having that like outline really just helps me kind of stay on track and just keep like everything just flowing right, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what they're saying there is time stamping your quotes in your handwritten notes, right?
I don't handwrite them. That would take like a
Oh.
ridiculous amount of time in all honesty. So like I have like my Google Doc open and I'll just have it in there.
Oh, okay, got it.
Because then too, if I'm like writing a piece, I can just like copy paste.
Yeah, you already have a head start on writing.
And I'll have like comments too of like, oh, this stood out to me. This is what I thought of when I saw this, or oh, I need to check back on this and find this website or this statistic or so on and so forth.
Great. Does anybody take handwritten notes? Okay, tell us about your process.
I went to the Hummingbird Festival this summer.
The Hummingbird Festival, nice.
Down in English, and that's just talking to a lot of different people, so I'm like labeling the recording as I'm doing it, and then I have my notepad on top of my phone, making sure I have like, okay, this person, their name, their pronouns, and then like notes of what they said, timestamps if they say something good. And then when I go to write the story, I like go through each person's section, see what I need from each of them, and then put it in. I don't really outline, I think that would probably be helpful, but I don't do it. And then I go back to my notes, and then I go back to the recordings if I need to get quotes.
So as you're writing down stuff, you also have to be recording in the process, like one hand with the recording device or.
Oh, so like my phone, the recorder is like pointed towards the person, and then I have my job, let me have like the little recorder notebook, so that's also in that same hand, and I'm going.
And how are you pinpointing the quotes you might want to go back to?
So if it's real important, I'll like take, my phone will be on, so I'll just take the pad off and look at the timestamp upside down and write that down and then like star it or something.
You just flag the timestamp.
Yeah,
Okay, and write it down in your notebook.
yes, I have a really good shorthand I use, so.
Okay. I'm not, did you want to mention anything?
No, basically same. I write timestamps in my notes. I also just like having a notebook because it feels like less formal than a laptop, in my opinion, when I'm interviewing someone. And also it's not always practical to have your laptop like out if you're at an event or something. So I like writing my questions in my notebook and then referencing them off that.
So how do you have to be sitting down if you're using a laptop or an iPad to interview someone?
Most likely, I think that's what makes doing that might be a little bit too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more fun.
I'm thinking about standing up a lot when you're.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
each their own, I think if you.
Who spoke before online? Was it Karina?
Yes.
Karina, how do you physically do it? Can you do that standing up, or are you sitting down when you use a laptop?
So I guess like it honestly depends. Like if am doing an interview with someone, I don't want it to be like too formal. I want them to feel comfortable. So I'm very much so like I have my notebook and I'll have my phone recording. But with like the ASU&M Senate meeting, I felt that that was a lot of information to do. And there's like there's multiple spots where you can just sit and like have your laptop out. So personally, I feel like it just depends. Like who I'm interviewing, what space I'm in, but like I feel like since it was more of like a news-based type thing, I felt that it was a better option for me to have my laptop compared to like my notebook or my iPad.
Okay, that's helpful. Great. So the first step of the 5 steps is to get organized, and we've talked about that. I'm not an outline person. I kind of feel like it forms in my head as I go. The story, the angle, the focus. But I think as you sit down to write, you should know the beginning, middle, and end of your story. You should have at least an idea of what that is. If you don't have that, you probably should be writing. Although, in a worst case scenario, you have writer's block and you're like, I don't know where this is going. In that case, just start writing. And it doesn't even have to be a lead, you can start in the middle of the story. Take those quotes that you flagged and either transfer them from your document or transcribe them from your notepad, whatever. Just put a bunch of quotes down so that you start to hear voices, something to jog you. But ideally, you kind of have a general shape of the story before you write it. The second thing to do is, and this helps you to do that, is to write a focus sentence. It doesn't have to be your lead, but it can be a sentence. They have this thing that they call the elevator pitch. You guys know what an elevator pitch is? An elevator pitch is that you have, usually it's talked about in books and movies and that sort of thing. Where you have this story idea and you're in an elevator and you have less than a minute to tell it to somebody. That's your pitch, that's what your story is. You should be able in 25 words or less. You should be able, when you come back from that government session, or if you're at the Hummingbird Festival, or if you're at a protest or something like that, as you leave that event, you should start to formulate an idea of what that focus is and what that focus sense is, that elevator pitch. It could change, it could evolve, you could sort it out in your head a little bit, you can sort it out when you outline it. You might think that, you know what, I think this is what the focus of the story should be, and then you start to sit down and you look at your notes, which you should organize your notes in whichever way you do that, whether they're written or typed in advance. But organizing your notes is helpful. But you should be able to have that focus sense that then drives the rest of your story. Yes.
You think in a way that's like mainly associated with like an introductory, like hook and whatnot, because I feel like that sounds like an elevator pitch, that sounds like something you can introduce within that, so it focuses on the topic and then proceed with the rest of the topic. Is that
It could
it's most necessary?
It could absolutely be, and I would say at least half the time, it's gonna be your lead of the story.
Yes, like the hook.
Yeah, the hook. Although sometimes your lead is 3 paragraphs, it's not necessarily the first paragraph. But it moves, it's invariably the lead of your story. That's what and I think that's what a focus sentence does, is it helps you kind of launch into the story starting from the lead. And then the third broad idea I have is to settle on that thing, whatever you've come up with. Make sure that there's some sort of thing. Some stories just kind of write themselves and they're not that big picture of a story. But even the most straightforward basic stories have kind of a beginning, middle, and an end. But they also have a theme that is kind of woven throughout. So try to figure that out. There was a copy editor out of Baltimore who said that, who quoted someone who said the best thing they learned from a college professor in journalism school was that your story should say one thing. It should be about one thing. That's a kind of a good rule of thumb. Don't get locked into it, but in general, you want to be. Essentially, you should have the headline and the lead formulated in your head, and everything flows from that. I'm not saying you have to write the headline during this process, but that should kind of be in your head. And then, and this could be a whole separate session. The fourth broad thing about writing a story is keep it simple. Try to have clean copy. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to do too much in every sentence. Use short sentences that are simple and direct. Write with nouns and verbs, not with adjectives. Adjectives rarely help your story. That's shorthand. That's you kind of characterizing something. Just show me what happened. Let me hear what someone said. Whatever somebody took an action, use a verb to describe that action. So write with nouns and verbs, not adjectives. And think about every word you use. There's a very old book that I still think is useful. It's called The Elements of Style. I used to use it when I taught. It's outdated in many ways. It's corny. It's 100 years old. But its mantra was the phrase, omit needless words. Don't use 10 words when you can get by with 5. Take out an adjective if it's not needed. Avoid jargons and cliches and euphemisms, things you see all the time, things you've heard all the time. try to be unique, try to just speak with your own voice and don't feel like you have to sound like someone else. In that sense, some of these ideas are not mine alone, of course. My favorite book on writing, and I used to use this to teach as well, is the book on writing by Paula Rock. She was a writing coach at the Dallas Morning News back in the day. This is a book about writing, and it's not necessarily about newspaper writing. It's about telling stories and how to tell stories as straightforward and efficiently and as entertaining as possible. She talks about archetypes and characters and plots. You can use this book to write screenplays or novels. You are not on a daily basis writing screenplays or novels. You're writing news stories, but you borrow some of the same techniques. This book is in the library here. I would recommend it. It's still available online in used form. I have an extra copy if anybody wants to borrow it. And so I think Paula Rock really breaks down storytelling and narrative writing in a really, I think it's very clear the way she does it. When you're writing, get to the point and stay there. Find not just your theme, but find your focus and just hammer away at that and don't stray. And as much as possible, write quickly and with as few distractions as possible. There's a classic story. Back in the day, back in the crazy 1960s, when there were a lot of protests, there was something in 1969 in Chicago called Days of Rage, where young people kind of rampaged through the city, kind of like what happened, well, Seattle was 20 some years ago too, I guess. I'm trying to think of a more current version of kind of street protests. I guess the George Floyd protests would be like this as well. But this was kind of people running through kind of the magnificent mile of Chicago, all the fancy stores downtown, just rampaging, breaking windows and yelling and protesting and causing a scene. There was a guy named Tom Fitzpatrick who covered that event. And then it was happening in the evening. He went back to his desk and he asked his editor, how much time do I have to write the story? And the editor said, you have 20 minutes. I need that story in 20 minutes. And he just started writing and stopped in 20 minutes and handed in a story. And his story won a Pulitzer Prize. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to take forever to write a story. You can let it spill out of you. Sometimes you want to take that extra care with it, but sometimes you just want to, don't overthink it. Just kind of let that story come out of you. We're closing in on 1 o'clock. Let me wrap up here. So I said, get organized, write a focus sentence, settle on a theme that you're going to weave through your story. Keep it simple with kind of these straightforward writing techniques. And then finally, proofread and edit. It's going to go to the copy desk. They're going to look at your story. Don't rely on them 100%. Don't dump your story on Maddie or a copy editor. Read it over to yourself. Read it aloud if that helps. So that you can find the speed bumps in your story that maybe you want to smooth out. Print it out, read it on the page if that helps. Look stuff up, check spelling, check facts. Trim needless words. And don't be afraid to cut your story. One of my you guys know who Don Schrader is? I mentioned him earlier, the naked guy. I did a big profile on Don. He was more well known back in the day, but because he hung out more at UNM. And he's this lightning rod person. He believes in he's a raw vegan. He believes in he believes in being naked and sun worship. He's gay, and he also is a strong environmentalist. He also is anti-war. He doesn't believe in paying taxes. And I started hanging out with him because he's a very public figure, and he lived down the street from me. And so I decided one day that I was gonna invite myself over to his house. And he lived in a room that wasn't even this big. And he lived simply. And so I just started hanging out with him, and I would take notes. The first time I didn't take notes, and then I started taking notes. I would see him about once a month, maybe twice a month. And after a year, I wasn't even a writer when I started hanging out with him. I was a copy editor, and then I started. I went over to the features desk, and I was a writer. And so, and then they announced that the paper was closing in 2008, which is when I would go to law school and become a lawyer. But they said that the paper's closing. If there's anything you want to do it. And I said, I want to write a story about Don Schrader. I want to write an epic profile, and I have the perfect hook. So my theme was, he is this big public figure. Everybody knows him, or they think they know him. I think he still does, has a cable show that he does on local access cable TV, and it's on YouTube as well. And I said, everybody thinks they know him, everybody sees him out there. I'm gonna do a story based on knowing Don Schrader on 15 visits in his 150 square foot room. Maybe out in his backyard where he sits in the sun in a loincloth. And so I wrote a story about Don Schrader. And I think it came out well. It's been well received. And but I sent it to my features editor. And my features editor, and I sent it to another person on the features desk, Carrie Seidman, another veteran writer. And I had like a double ending. I had like an ending and then a heck of it again. And she thought my ending was flat. I thought, oh my God, I just wrote this, and it was a huge story. I mean, it was a very long story. It was like a magazine length profile. And she said I would cut the last two paragraphs, and I would end it where you have this paragraph where you say how he'd like to be buried and what music he'd like played. And then I had some other thing that I thought was really clever. And she said, and that was her recommendation. I cut the last two paragraphs from my story. It felt like it was killing me at the time, but I don't ever remember what those last two paragraphs said. And I think it ends well. So don't be afraid to cut your story. Don't be afraid to tighten it. We used to have to kind of fit a news hole and a certain size on the page or something like that. A couple of quick things I want to point out. Also, when you're doing some editing and writing, the lead. We talked about the lead. I want to give you the lead challenge, which is trim down your leads, your first paragraph of your story. The old rule of thumb used to be like a 30 words at most is what you should write, maybe 25 words at most. You guys may have heard something to that effect. You may have something in your head yourself. Try to do it in 15 words. Try to do it as tight as possible. And I'm gonna pick on Karina and Elizabeth here. Just really quickly, not pick on them, but point stuff out. I think those were two stories that jumped out at me in the past week, the AI story and the student government story. I like that the student government story started out with a quote. I am incredibly disappointed in the Senate as a whole. I think that would have been great just as a lead just by itself. And then tell me who said it in the next paragraph. But then it gives me a title, a name, a number of a bill, a number of another bill, or a number of a bill, a vote, and a date. To me, that's a little too much just for the first sentence of the story. I think it kind of takes a little bit away from the quote. The quote should just kind of jump out, because there you have it. I'm incredibly disappointed in the Senate as a whole. I love that quote. I love that lead. I like that the way that starts out. But my challenge to you is write short leads and get rid of every essential proper noun. Get rid of everything but essential necessary proper nouns. I think of a lead, kind of, as a, kind of a heart rate monitor or something. Where a proper noun kind of goes up, a proper noun, it goes up like that. And I think those are kind of hurdles when you're reading, is when you're reading proper nouns. So try to limit the proper nouns. And I'll point out in Elizabeth's story, again, it could be tightened because, here, let me read it. As the second round of 8-week courses arrive, the University of New Mexico Organization Information and Learning Science Services Department offers an artificial intelligence literacy course titled Artificial Intelligence in Education, Future of Learning. Very informative. However, it's full of proper nouns. It in fact has the same proper noun, artificial intelligence, twice in the lead. So not only does it have a lot of proper nouns, it has one repeated. Again, this is a really good story. This has a lot of voices in it, and I really enjoyed it. It's been, maybe that earned her a place on page 1 next week. I don't know. But the basis of this story is that as the second round of 8-week courses starts, UNM is going to offer an artificial intelligence literacy course. That's the lead, right? I don't need to know what the name of the course is in the lead. I don't need to know which organization is arranging it. You can tell me that in the second, third, or fourth paragraph. So just give me a lead that says, as the second round of 8-week courses arrive, UNM is offering a course in artificial intelligence literacy. And then go from there. So my challenge to you is to write some clean, tight leads that only use proper nouns when absolutely necessary. Any questions, observations? Legs are jiggling. We're ready to go write stories ourselves and put a newspaper together, right?
Anyone else?
So Pitch for Paul Rock, the book on writing. It's in the library. I'll put it back on the shelf. I think it's literally above the word writing on the shelf there. And then please tell Maddie what you want to hear going forward in these workshops. What would be helpful to you? If you want, I can kind of give you a version of something what I talked about in writing with a little bit more background. I can do that. I thought I would, and then let me know if, like in November, you'd be ready for some sort of critiques. Either you think you would be?
We've got our staff. So
Okay.
we're not doing hiring anymore. That is done.
Okay.
So, and I don't see why I'm not.
Okay. I haven't been looking for hands online, but you guys have been?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So maybe I'll try to. You don't want to hear from me next time, so I'll try to find somebody who wants to critique. I have somebody in mind, but we'll see. Okay. And it would be the second Sunday of November.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You guys are fun. Go put out a newspaper. Have fun.
We're gonna switch gears to our pitch meetings.
All right.
Plan. Okay. Zina, I'm gonna make you a co-host for the news meeting. Unless you want, I could also share my, I'll make you a co-host.
It would be nicer if you share it though.
Oh, cool. I can also do that.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Oh, here's the Daily Lobo alumni mentoring the QR code. If somebody wants it again. It's okay. Cool. Okay. Is this where it should be?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just I'll start at the bottom. Yes. Okay. Tell me if you want to scroll. If you want me to scroll.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, the conversation that we just had was very helpful. I just want to say that because I feel like for me, sometimes my brain goes in so many directions, and the conversation about the 5 points of getting a story and writing it really helped me like narrow down all of that. So thank you for that. I'm gonna go into my pitches. I'll try to make it fast. Okay, so the first is there's a new campus watch program. I found this very interesting. It's kind of like neighborhood watch, but not really. They're taking some elements out of it. So the campus watch officials are working with building coordinators right now, and they're dividing the campus into different campus watch zones. These zones are going to have communication within each other to kind of look at different crimes and security issues and see, if that's impactful or if this like program is effective. I feel like this really relates to the last two pieces Lily and Lauren wrote. So definitely, you guys, if you want to work on it, it would really kind of tie into the conversation that we've already been having in the past two pieces. Um, about planning, designing, and construction program. I'm going to repitch this. I did talk about it last week. I just want to say that this is pretty important because a lot of ICP projects are coming out of it now. They're thinking of revamping Welcome Center and education buildings. So it will be interesting to see where they're getting their fundings from and where they're going to be putting it. Um, there's one more survey happening. It's called Campus Safety Culture Survey. I think that's interesting because it ties into the student employment conversation. Maddie and I were just talking about it last week. That there are, I feel like a lot of, I won't say errors, but a lot of problems that we do see in student employment and work environment in UNM offices. So this campus safety culture survey is going to be anonymous and it's going to be sent out to all the students and the students who are also getting paid and faculty. Through that survey, they're going to talk about work environments, pays, and all of that. So that would be something interesting to kind of tie into. Um, the campus outlet project. So ASUNM gets fundings where they then decide this is a project that we're going to put our fundings to. We usually brainstorm those projects. The previous capital outlay projects were Lobo Lift. They also installed lights in JLOT. They also kind of beautified Redondo and Yale. So yeah, it would be interesting to kind of think what the ASUNM senators are thinking right now and where they might be planning on putting their fundings. I just want to reassess this, kind of talk about it more, that elections are going to be here soon. It's something that we want to start working on now to be more effective. I really want to start the election conversations. So that's why I'm going to pitch a couple bills. So the ASUNM meeting, the next one is happening on October 11th. If you guys want to cover it, you're interested in it, let me know. We are working on it together right now, and that's how we're going to go forward with it too. So you guys will have full support when it comes to ASUNM meetings. You guys would not have to do it alone. But there are going to be a couple important bills coming up. For example, there's going to be amending Southwest Film Center, which is Bill 15F. I'm talking about these bills because it will be kind of interesting to make a synopsis of this is what might come out of them, and then seeing it actually play out in the Senate meeting will be interesting to make the cross comparison by giving our take on it. So the Southwest Film Center is being revamped. They're upgrading it. They're having new team members and possibly managers on there. The 14F bill is also a hiring process. It seems like ASUNM are hiring more people now. There's going to be new positions possibly opening up. So the chief of staff, director of communication, directors of diversity, and the president and the vice president are going to be reviewing the hiring process, which should be interesting to look at. Talking about new positions opening up, ASUNM are adding duties for Senate aide staff. So it would be interesting to assess that adding duties to already existing Senate clerks and senator support staff adds a lot of more work on them. So it would be, I feel like, something interesting to kind of write a piece about, like how much of a workload does the Senate aide has to deal with. Do they need more people onboarding? Do they need to connect more with students to have more people join ASUNM? Because I feel like that organization needs to be more accessible to the student body. Adding on to that, the last bill that I'm going to talk about is 13F. So they're thinking about adding a proxy vote. So if one of the senators, for example, is not there in the quorum, and they have excused absence, then 2 senators can vote for them, and they need to get that approved before or after the meeting. In 2022 standing rules, it clearly says that no proxy votes will be allowed, and the senators need to be there to have vote by word. But I think it might be changing now, and this bill kind of interested me more than the other, because I feel like every senator vote really counts, and especially with election coming up, this bill can have a big impact on the elections and the failure of 9 and 10F. Um, so yeah, talking about elections, homecoming election is coming very soon. The results are going to be out October 18th. The coronation is going to be on October 21st. The applications are out, and we already have a list of election candidates. So this is something interesting if you want to cover about, hey, these are the candidates standing up for you guys. These are the kings and the queen candidates. You could possibly just get a couple words from the candidates and just ask what are they expecting their position to be like, what are the resources they want to provide to the student body, how are they planning to work with that. That would be interesting to cover. And then my last pitch is there's going to be a protest outside UNM bookstore on October 8th. It's Free Palestine protest, and it's being conducted by Party for Socialism and Liberation.
I think that last one's ongoing, so if anybody wants to run over there right now.
Yeah. I think there is still more time if you guys still want to go, but it will be interesting.
Fabulous. Thank you, Zaina. We will get to anybody. We'll switch on over. We'll switch on over to culture. These will all be also sent out in the group chats. Oh, is there? Oh, these were stories that have these. Yes. Yeah. Yes. There's a lot of the old pictures are still welcome to pick up too if anyone's interested. But okay. You good? Okay. Gonna pass it over to Karina.
All right.
Do you want me to make you screen share or do you want to?
Yeah, can I do that instead? Sorry.
Yes. No, totally. I'm gonna stop share.
How's everyone doing today? I hope good. I can't see you.
You're a co-host. Oh, sorry. I'll put it this
What's
way.
up, guys? What's up? Okay, so let me share my screen. All right, cool. Can everyone see it? Are we good? Hopefully. Yes. Okay. All right. So the first pitch I had was tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day, of course, and they're going to be having an event at the Mesa Vista Courtyard from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. I'm not too sure if they're going to be having food, but I know that they're going to be having like local vendors come to the courtyard and just hang out. And there's a lot of different information on that, but of course I can send it to you if you need it. The next event, also, sorry, again, I can't see, also just like yell that you want like that one if that's something you want to do. And then on the 11th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's going to be a pulga that's hosted by El Centro, and they're going to be doing it in partnership or in collaboration with the Rail Yards Market. And I just think it'll be a really cute, super cool event. They're going to be doing it at Cornell Mall. And I don't know, I'm just a fan of all of the events that go on at Cornell Mall. And I think it's really amazing because one of the program assistants at El Centro reached out to the Rail Yards Market and was able to get half off veggie boxes for students that have SNAP. And I'm gonna send that to all hands if that's okay today, just so we can repost it. I just think it's a super cool event. And then, of course, the Balloon Fiesta is going on all week. I think it was super cool to see like the UNM balloon. I don't know if any of y'all follow Barstool Lobos, but I thought it was funny, like the U versus the person they tell you not to worry about, and it's like the NMSU balloon versus like the UNM balloon. I don't know, I just think that beef's like really silly, so I think that'd be just like a cool thing to do, even if it's just over the balloon festa. And so on October 14th, this Saturday, there's going to be an annular solar eclipse. And I know that it's hitting right on Albuquerque, which is like a once in like a lifetime thing. But I know that there's going to be a UNM viewing event that the Department of Physics and Astronomy are going to be doing the 14th. And they're just going to go to Johnson Field. They're going to have like the special glasses and just like, it'll be like a super cool event where they'll like talk about like the sciencey aspects of like the solar eclipse and then watch it and just it's open to the community, so that's another cool aspect of it as well. So yesterday and tonight there is the Dark Red Film Fest. It's basically like a horror film fest, and that's going to be going on today from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I think the tickets are 15 for like the full block. I'm not sure, but I can also send the website for that. It's just on the Guild's website. And as you know, fall's rolling in, a lot of the markets are going to be closing, unfortunately. So I know that the Rail Yards Market, their last date is going to be October 29th. And they're super cool because they do like different themes like every Sunday. And so like maybe finding or even like going to a Halloween theme would be cool. Because I know that they have like they dress up like the pets and stuff and have like different things like that. I think it'd be like a cool photo story or even like a cool culture story. So yeah. The Growers Market, that's another local growers market that's going to be closing on November 5th, unfortunately. And this Wednesday is actually National Coming Out Day. I think it'd be really cool to just talk about, just because I feel like our campus climate is pretty accepting in comparison to a lot of others, which is like unfortunate to have to like even compare that at all. But give it, I don't know, I feel like it's a super important date, and I feel like it'd be cool to even go and talk to Frankie maybe, or have like some type of collab with LGBTQ Resource Center and just like really highlight that maybe. And these are some past pitches that I had talked about in last Sunday's meeting. So Katrina brought this one up to me. The whole Target Hispanic Heritage Month, doing like a critique or an opinion piece. I know that there was a lot of like similar like public comment on it that there were on like the Pride Month stuff. So I don't know, I think it'd be a cool little piece to do. The O'Keefe and More music exhibit is still open at the Albuquerque Art Museum, and it's going to be open until December 31st. And so this one, our friend Jessica actually had brought up to me. And so we wanted to get like a view of from various reporters on horror movies they love. So with this one, it would just be like a couple of reporters just choosing like one or two movies, depending on how many of y'all want to write about those movies. And some of y'all have already reached out to me about that, which is awesome. But yeah, I just really wanted to give y'all like the opportunity to just write in that piece, because it's a super cute little like section, I think. And then Jessica also brought up the haunted house to me, where 50/50 used to be. I sent that one in the culture chat as well. So just refer back to that if that's cool. And then these were just like some other ones that were also like some previous ones. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, going and seeing different restaurants or spaces around campus. And I know that we still wanted to do like the Being Tea Boba truck. So I think a good way to like I was gonna say kill two birds with one stone, but I don't really care for that saying. But yeah, just like go to like the rail yards market and then go visit the boba tea truck like at the same time. Like I think that'd be pretty cool to like just be like, hey, we wanted to interview you about the amazing race that you were on, and then yeah, all that stuff. So that's all from me. If there's anything you'd like or anything else that you want to pitch to me, please feel free to just you can text me on Signal or email me. So yeah, thank you.
might need to start for it. Hang on.
Yeah. All right. Hello, Zoomers. Slow-ish sports week, we already have stuff picked up. The softball has their cherry and silver scrimmage this Wednesday. And then we have 2 volleyball games, both. The volleyball team is on a 3-game win streak. We're second in conference. Very exciting. Football is against San Jose. San Jose is 1-5, but they're a lot better than 1-5. So it's gonna be a very exciting game because they're desperate. And we need someone at this game. The United. Okay. So we're the 8th seed right now. We have 43 points. A win is 3 points, a draw is 1 point, a loss is 0 points. Tonight, Monterey is playing. If they win, they jump us in the standings. But if they lose or draw, United is control of their destiny. Sunday's game. Or Friday's game, excuse me. And if they win, they're in the playoffs. If they lose, they're not. So it's a very important game.
That game is when?
Friday at
Who is going to the United?
yeah. Win and
And I United crazy. It also too could probably win. That would also just like make United look better because they're getting their own stadiums. So
it is one of the most important games in franchise history. And that'd be a good one to byline if someone is scared to rate sports. I'm sure Billy Jack will want to go.
Or did you just Thomas? Did you ask and tell them that we're up here?
Yeah.
Okay, so they don't yell. I don't want them to yell at us.
All right. And then 4 photos. We already have 3 sports stories picked up. Did you see them? Okay.
All the way. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so we have the stories that are already picked up for news. We have the Excellent Award story picked up by Milan. I'm not too sure about all the details of that. If you do want to pick it up, just put just so we know who picked up what and everything like that. We're just gonna have everything said into the photo chat. So like people don't wonder if like a story hasn't been picked up or has been picked up. So if you do want to pick it up, if you're not at the like later in the week, just do it in the group chat so I can see and everyone else knows too. Also too, we have the men's roster preview and then oh I put that twice. Shoot. Because it was the men's
One's a conference preview, conference schedule.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Do you know what time that is actually?
It's a preview.
Well, no, or it's a preview of the conference?
Of the conference schedule, just like we do with the non-conference one.
I'm just kidding. I'm tired. I can't spell when everyone watches me. I don't know why. I'm tired. But is it like there's not like an event that like someone is going to, we're just previewing it, so it's not actually like an event or anything like that. Okay, so if anyone has for the roster preview, we could probably get in contact of like the new people on the roster, so that would be a good idea to do portraits and stuff like that. I would rather, if you do want to pick up that story, please do it sooner rather than later, because they're new to New Mexico and they have a lot of, I know they do like a lot of stuff for basketball, so making sure we get in contact with them so then we have the portraits for them when the paper comes at the end of the week. And then the women's basketball, which game was that?
It's a preview.
Oh, it's a preview. They're all preview. Old
almost basketball time. Boards and
yeah, that's not okay. There's that. If you have any women's basketball photos that we haven't used in print, because I'm trying to move away from reusing repeated images, which is also kind of unfair. So a lot of the newer photographers send that to me or call it in chat or call it now. And then the men's roster preview or the conference will just need an image of if anyone has past images of them at a conference, or if there's a conference this week, Thomas.
There's no basketball games.
No, but like, there's no conference or anything.
What do you mean?
Like, the coach isn't chatting publicly about anything.
Oh, a press conference.
Yeah.
Probably Wednesday,
What time?
middle-ish.
Can I say something about, hello,
What? Wait, who's talking?
Francesca?
Hi.
Hi, for men's basketball, they are doing a scrimmage on Thursday, 12, is it Thursday? Hold on. No, it's next Saturday from 12 to 2. If some, for either, I guess for the conference preview, I know that's the day before everything would be in, but there's a scrimmage if you guys wanted photos from that versus reusing an old one.
Yeah, I would rather do that. So if you do, I would say if you do pick up any, or like the roster preview or the conference, you could basically take on both stories and then we can split them. I think. But like one would have to be like of the coach and then one would have to be of the new players. That's how I would kind of say go about it. Though for coverage of sports, like the last one, the United one, even if we don't have a reporter, I would like a photographer to go out there and photograph it, even if it's just a photo story. Because it is really, really important. So even if we don't get someone to write it, we at least have someone out there. So that one was from would be on the 13th at 7 p.m.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. So, and then we do have some photo story potential stuff going on. We have the Dark Red Film Festival. So if you did want to pick that up, it would have to be tonight. The photos will not have to be in exactly tonight, but because I won't be going out with this issue, but you would have to go out and shoot it tonight. And then there's the Corrales Grows Market that's also available. And then which further down the line, but it would be the last month for the rail yards. And so that would also be a really cute photo story. And then the Rocky Horror Picture Show at the Lobo Theater. Since I know for people who haven't been to a Rocky Horror Show before, there is people performing.
It is so much.
And that would be really cool to get pictures of the people performing. So that would be fun. And another last day thing is Greek Fest. The last day of Greek Fest is today. So that would be another thing you would have to go out and shoot today to do that. But I mean, I suggest going. They got good food. They got good food. So, and then the solar eclipse story, of course, is something that I would like to be covered. One thing that I do have to warn, because the journal warned me very aggressively not to do it. Please be careful when you're using your camera to shoot it. You can burn out your camera and will no longer have a camera. So just be aware of that. There are filters you can get. And when I say filters, like filters, do not put the cheap plastic glasses in front of your camera and take the photo. You're still going to burn out your camera. So there's other ways of doing it. Just like word of caution. You can get away with it without burning out your camera, but like, if you're gonna risk it, just be mindful. It'd be something cool. Just be mindful. Like even if you get pictures of people like in the dark looking at it, that would be great. Just, camera, sun, sensor, not good mix. Be careful. And then for the Balloon Fiesta list, I don't know if any photographers are here that wanted to be added onto it, because we currently have 4 photographers that want to be part of the group photo story at the end, because we'll at least have one person's image be used to show the photographs of the Lobo during Balloon Fiesta. So if you do want to be a part of that, please let me know. But that should be all the pitches for photo for the week. Does anyone want to say anything?
I would like to pick up on the coming out story for the culture.
Oh, okay. So you're picking.
Oh, yeah.
But okay, but that's like, if you do want to, you for sure want to do that one, or just so I know if I can tell a photographer to go out for it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what day would that be, Karina?
Sorry. So the exact date is on Wednesday, but I'd say just get in contact with however you want to go about the story. Just DM me and just like fill me in. I'm totally down with whatever you want to do. I trust you. But I think it'd be cool to just get in contact with Frankie, have that written out, and then we can just have that published by or have it like sent to me by like Thursday or Friday, if that's okay.
Okay. It's not like is it like an event or anything like that?
I don't think from what I've seen, I don't think there's an event. What I do know though is it'd be cool to just have that like story because next week they're going to be doing like the waffle breakfast at the LGBTQ Resource Center as well.
The walk?
Waffle, sorry. It's like a waffle breakfast. It's cute. I saw it on like the UNM calendar.
I don't know if I want to necessarily like if that would go together with that story. Would it?
No, I'm saying not like necessarily in tandem, but like
Okay.
the story this week and then like the waffle story next week would be cool to like highlight the LGBTQ Resource Center as well. Because I want to say October is LGBTQ History Month. And that's, let me check on the date for that.
What day is that?
Let me check. Give me.
Because
Waffle is on the 18th.
okay. Do you know what time?
I think it's like 9 to 11.
Mhm.
Okay. Because that would be a cute photo story of everyone eating waffles. Yeah, 9 a.m. to 12. Right? Crazy. Okay. Anyone want to pick up photo wise? No, okay, I'll put it in chat momentarily then for photo. But yeah, so that should be everything.